Okay, we're going to have a look at grid systems and how we can experiment with them. Now, grid systems are really important in creating the structure in your design work, but if you stick too rigidly to them, it can create samey, constrained outputs. So a grid system is more or less a guide, and what you do is you break it and use different combinations. And this is quite an interesting video from Thomas Gaskin, and he's gone through and identified 892 different structures for a 3x4 grid system. So if you look at this, it will see different combinations can be had, sort of going up, more complex work. So there's lots of options, and the only way really you can see the options is by experimenting with them. So we're going to have a look at how maybe we could experiment with grid systems using Adobe Photoshop CC. You can use anything, you can even do it with bits of paper, but this will give you an idea of how we can sort of test out different combinations. Right, we're over in Photoshop and we're going to create a new document. So File, New. Now it only has to be quite small, so I will just go for something like about 1500 pixels by 1500 pixels. I'm going to leave the resolution on 72 to make sure it works quickly, and then click OK. So I've set up a little square on here for the canvas. Now if you using Photoshop and you come in and all your panels are maybe where they were before or messed up, you can go to the window menu, you can go to workspace, and you can reset your panels, and that'll take them back to the default setting. Okay, so we're ready to go. To set up our guides, we go to the view menu and we go down to new guide layout. Now once you've got the panel out, you'll see it here. It should give a preview. If it's not giving a preview, you need to go up to the view preview and switch that on, so that toggles it back and forward. Now what you need to do is to have 4 columns, which we have 4. Then you need to switch rows on, and they need to be set to 3. Now the other important thing you need to do is pay attention to the gutter. Now the gutter is the gaps between the columns and the rows, and we ideally need to have them the same. If they were, say, 10 and 20, you'll see they were uneven. So if we select them and make them 20. Now you'll notice that there's no space around the edge of this page or document. I press the margin and it's populated it with 20 all the way around. If that's what you want, then that's fine. That corresponds to my gutters on rows and columns, so that's fine. I click OK. Now once I've got that set up, the next thing I would do is just to put a shape on there. I would go down to the tools and further down to the bottom section, you'll find where they have all the shapes. If you can't see the rectangle shape, click your mouse, hold it, and a flyout will appear, and select rectangle tool. Now to begin with, I can just drag out anywhere and draw the shape. I'll just get the move tool up at the top. What I need to make sure once I've selected the move tool, I have show transform controls up at the top here, and that will give these little sort of handles and controls to scale it. Also, I'll have auto select, and that will, whatever object I click on or layer, it will select that layer automatically. You need to make sure it does say layer rather than group. Now I'll move it. Now when you are moving items, what you've got to do is to make sure you don't move them from the center, dead on the center. That'll just move the center position. Try and move it around with the move tool off center. Now all I'll do is position it here, and I move it within the guides. And when I'm happy with it, I can press enter or return, or I can click the tick commit button up at the top menu. Now once I've got that, I just need to duplicate it. Lots of different ways of duplicating. You can copy and paste. You can use the keyboard shortcuts. But in this case, we're just going to do a drag copy. So you hold the Alt key on the keyboard and you'll see your mouse will change. It has double arrowheads. There's a black one with a white one in the background. Keep that held down on the Alt key and just drag out, and it'll drag out another copy, and we can keep on doing that and dragging out copies. Now what you would do is just move them around and copy them like that. Now say I wanted to put them on all of them, I could just shift click, again hold the Alt key, drag, and again I can just do that again. So what I've done is I've created pretty much a boring grid, but if you want to have lots of pictures on there. Now if I want to play around with different columns, I can now change those, delete them to see how they work. Now if you notice over here, they're all come in as layers, and that's fine. Now all I'll do is, say for example, if you're not seeing that properly and you can't tell the background from the foreground, I'll just shift click them all. I can go up here where it's got the properties of the shape, and I can click on here and maybe I'll make them red so they stand out a bit more. Now what I'll do is I'll change the combination of the grid. Maybe I'll delete a few here, and maybe I could drag this out. The other case I could do is maybe every time you amend something, make sure you press enter or return. I delete these here, and maybe I could drag this out to make a combination, right? And then you can come along and say, okay, I can delete these. I'll just get rid of those like that. And I could do something like this. I could take this over. You're using these things as certain guides, and you could have something like this. I press enter or return. I click here and I drag this out again, enter and return. And you're just having different combinations, and if you want to test it out, you might want to change the colors to let you know. So what you do is just play around with these things until you're sort of happy or seeing different shapes. But if you're doing it for a real design job, these blocks would be either photographs, blocks of text, titles, and it would just give you a good idea of what the grid system you've set up will allow you to do. Okay, so experiment. You don't have to use Photoshop. You can use bits of paper and sketch things out. You'll just need a grid system to begin with, and then go through all the different available combinations. Then when you come to do your real design work and putting in real content, you'll have a good idea of what the options are available.